to invite Alan Labonte again, and I'm going to say that again because I've been writing him before in the operations class. He talks about simulation, and that's because of his expertise. He has been in the field of operations forever, is now an advanced fellow with the VA Center of Learning Management and how do we say commerce?
Center for Organization, Leadership, and Management Research.
Okay. Okay, I'm not good at it. We call it commerce because we have a lot of faculty who work at commerce. He has been awarded innovative grants for developing simulation models when he used to work with Dr. Restuccia and the management.
Dr. Schwartz, yeah.
He worked with Dr. Michael Schwartz as well at the Department of Operations in the School of Business across from the campus. So I have to tell you, for me, every time it's a learning experience, every word that we learn in operations gets applied here. He uses very basic tools which are very easy for us to emulate if we want to use them in our work. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Well, happy to see you all. Are you usually sit in the bleachers at Fenway? Oh, okay. All right. Okay. I thought, maybe it was the Fenway Park syndrome. I looked through the syllabus and I see that you've done a lot already with simulation. And so I wanted to start by asking you what you think about this as a tool. What do you think are its strengths and weaknesses? Do you think it's useful, practical, or not as a management tool? So please, someone tell me what you think of this. I mean, you've had 2 sessions devoted pretty much to simulation.
I think you have the old.
Oh, I have the old.
Yes.
Okay.
There was one session, right, for simulation.
Oh, okay. And did you build a model?
No, they didn't.
They didn't.
We don't have access to that.
Did you
We used to keep
Little's law? Did you study Little's law and the lambdas and the mu's and all of that? And but you didn't actually build a model, or I know in the syllabus I looked at it said something to the effect that you might try Excel or something.
some tried
Yeah. I think what's wrong with simulation is that it puts a lot of people off. They think of it as kind of a black box thing, heavy math, the X, J, Y, Q, whatever, that they get scared of it. So, but what I've tried to do with my grants is try to make it user-friendly and sensible for people like you that really you're not computer geeks, I don't think, and you're not mathematical people. You're people that are interested in careers in health services, which is where I come from. So that's why I originally, when I was at the School of Management, we used to teach a course called OM 725. And the very first night, we used to do a thing, an operations simulation, only we did it with individuals. We set up a little assembly line and had people make paper puppets. So some would you know, cut them out. Some would then they'd pass it on. Some would put the eyes on. See, someone would do the folding. Someone would do the cutting. And eventually, at the end of the line, they'd end up with this little paper puppet, which sounds silly, but it was clear after a very short time that because the work was all getting backed up at one place, because just like in this demonstration I'm going to show you, is a person that had the longest, makes sense, that had the longest task. I think it was the cutting or one of the folding operations. It was 2 or 3 folds. It was like, what is it, origami or something, I think they call it in Japan. So, yeah, so the work would pile up, and this person would be getting very nervous because all of her colleagues were just sitting there waiting, and her task, or his task, was twice as long as everybody else. And so some people were tempted to come over and help that person, but we, of course, wouldn't let them. And so they kept track of the time it took at each step in the process. And then at the end, we saw how many puppets they produced and how many were defective and so on. But it was very good because it brought the thing to life. But then we ended up doing a lot of blackboard process analysis. And that, you know, I know was probably very boring for the people that were, you know, is this an elective course over here or is it a required course?
It's an elective, right? Yeah.
Oh, so everybody that's here wants to be here. Yeah, so I used to sit in front of a group of people of like 50 students that absolutely hated being there. And a lot of my classes were at night, so it was awful. So just relax. We're going to have some fun. I'm going to show you some models. This first model is, I don't know if anyone has ever gone down to get their license at the Massachusetts registry, but I don't know what it's like now, but it used to be like you had to take a half a day off from work to get your license because it took so long. And part of the reason it took so long was because of this little process in front of you. First, people came into the registry, then someone reviewed their application, and there was a waiting situation. Then they had to go in and pay for whatever it was. You know how the state got the money first. And then they made you wait. Then there was another queue. Then they checked to see if you had any violations that would prevent you from getting a license. Then you had an eye test. And these were all at separate stations. And then finally get your photo taken, and then there was an issuance at the end. Well, all of this, as you can probably see up on the screen, in essence, it only took about 2 or 3 minutes to get through the whole process. But that was the very first person that came to the registry. In no time here, because you see the violations task took 60 seconds, which was the longest time, so this queue would build up in front of that bottleneck task. So what, I'll run the model now so you can sort of see how this works. Oh, I think that may be a little fast, but you can see people coming in. You see the bottleneck queue? There are 7, 8 people waiting.
Yeah.
The model has only been running now for a few seconds, and there's average wait is up to 4 minutes. Can you see that little display there that has the bottleneck data? So it shows the average length of the line, what the average wait was in minutes, the maximum. Oh, there are 29 people waiting already for service. Maximum length's already, maximum wait, somebody's already waited 18 minutes, 18 and a half minutes. There are 84 people, as you can see, that have arrived at the registry. See the little block over there? But only 46 have gotten their license and left. So this is a very, very slow process. So, oops, yeah. No, I don't think I want to send this, especially since I don't have an internet connection. But you get the idea from watching this model run what the problem was. So the question was, what can we do with this process to make it more efficient so that people don't have to wait as long? So let me close this. License Bureau improved. All right. So what we did was created 5 multitask servers, and those people were cross-trained so that when you went to any one of these 5 people, they would take care of the review, the payment, check the violations, and give you the eye test. Any one of these people, and it was a first come, first serve. So you stood in one line, and the first server that was available, you went to that person. After that, you went in and got your photograph and waited and had the license issued. But let's see how this model runs. Okay, so you can see things are happening a lot quicker. 22 people have arrived and been. So you can see that every time, see the little ones and the zeros over these 5 servers. So any time one's available, they immediately get up, the next person in line comes in. I'll show you the so you can see that queue in front of photos. There are 1 or 2 people waiting. So you can see that this process is much more efficient. And that's the beauty of these models is I haven't said, anything about mathematics here. It just basically lets you see where the workstations are. And by the way, you don't have to do the programming for this. Once you're out there in the field and working, if you've got a process problem in your hospital or wherever you're working in healthcare, you can bring someone in to build a model for you for a few $1,000s. And then you can use that model to see how you can improve the process. So let's see what the let's see if I can. Okay. Now you can see the average length of the line was about a half a person. It's been very short person. Average weight was less than something like 20 seconds. Maximum length, 2 people waiting. Maximum weight was about a minute. So a much more efficient process. And that's what you can, yeah.
When you build these models, what data do you need to collect to build the support?
Yeah, it's basically similar to what you studied. You need to know the arrival rate of people coming in for service. So that's all being, captured over here. You can see that this follows an exponential distribution, and the inter-arrival time is about 1 person every 30 seconds. So, so you have to capture that data. You have to, basically someone goes to the registry and watches people come in the door, writes down the time that they came in, and you collect data. And I'll show you how to analyze that data before I leave. But so basically you need to know what the arrival rate of people is. And then you need to know how long it takes to service them. So for these multi-task servers, it takes about 2.5 minutes on average for them to, basically do the review, take the payment, check the violations, and do the eye test. And again, that's going to be there's going to be a probability distribution for that, which is, again, I'll show you a little graphic to make this a little more understandable. But so those are basically the 2 kinds of data. You need to know what the arrival rate is, in other words, what the demand is for service, and you need to know how long it takes to provide the service. So if it's an emergency room, you'd have people coming in for service. You'd have someone right there at the front desk doing, taking down the administrative data. You'd have a nurse basically doing the triage and then treatment and so on. So you can see how this could be applied in healthcare. If it was a doctor's office, people would show up to see the doctor. They go to see, the receptionist, and it's the same kind of thing.
So basically, for each process, you take the mean from the radiation of the virus, and the distribution is normal exponential. That's how 3 key variables that you calculate for each process.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's for the arrival rate. You need to do that. And you also need to do it for the people that are actually providing the service. Okay, so for the servers. So these were some of my earliest attempts. Save changes. Okay. So then the next generation. I'm trying to think which one is it? Oh, the experimental model. All right. Now you see this is getting to be even a little more user-friendly. This is, this particular model was built for a bank. So you can see there's a small parking lot where people drive up and park. Some people go to see the servers. You can think of them as tellers. Some people go to see the manager. Some people go for customer service, probably for a loan or something. And some people might just go into a cashier function for one reason or another. So in this model, things get a little more interesting. You notice down at the lower part, there are 2 servers, 2 cashiers, 2 customer service representatives, and we can keep track of how well they're utilized and what the average wait is for customers that are coming to see them. We can look at the parking lot, seeing if the parking lot gets full. We don't get too many customers if people can't find a parking spot. It's not really much different in the, you know. I remember once at Mass General, I went to see a physician there and waited like a half, 3/4 of an hour. And I finally had to tell the receptionist, look, I'm sorry, I got another appointment. I have to leave. So, well, you know what? The very next time I went there, I had a very short wait. And not only did I see the doctor, but I saw his supervisor at the same time. So, you know, I didn't do it to be mean, but I did have another appointment, and 3/4 of an hour waiting to see this doctor was a very long time. So, you have to, I think in healthcare now, especially with the advent of the accountable care organizations, people are going to start to shop around a little bit, I think. And there's talk of a voucher system. And I think healthcare people, patients, if you want to call us that, are going to, you know, be a little less accepting of the way that things have operated in the past. We're not going to want to wait around, and remember that waiting time is a measure of quality. It's a measure of patient satisfaction. So, and you can also think of this model as measuring efficiency also. And the thing that you're going to have to deal with when you're out working, and maybe many of you are working already, is that when you're managing a department or a function, you're always there's always that trade-off between how much it costs, how much staffing do we need, what's our budget, and how satisfied are the people that come to us for service. So that's the trade-off that you're always dealing with. And these little models are very useful once you get the data, and you can update the data on a regular basis. Many banks do this, airlines do this kind of stuff all the time. They actually analyze all their waiting situations and change staffing to accommodate the situation. So let's run this one and see what it looks like. Okay. All right, you see now, it's the beginning of the day. Cars are coming into the lot. People are starting to queue up in front of the servers. Oh, and by the way, you notice that there are different kinds of customers now. Some are women, some are workers, some are office workers, some are women office workers. So you can start to keep track of the kind of customer that comes in for service. And maybe certain customers you don't want to wait that long. So look at this, several women executives there. They've got briefcases. I apologize for the graphics, but I think the guy looks like he's got to wear a little pie hat there. I'm not so sure about that. But you can see people waiting now, occasionally, in front of some of the other places, like the customer service. There's nobody waiting there. But one thing is for sure that this server function, look, did you see that box? Yeah. No, that's somebody that came into the bank, if you want to call it that. There were too many people in line. They decided not to wait. They got back in their car and left. Conversely, if somebody comes, I think I said this before, look at the parking lot. There's not one space left. Well, you're not going to get many customers if the parking lot is full. So you could almost think of this parking lot thing as a call center. And the call center would be the number of lines that were coming in, Watts lines or 800 lines coming into the call center. That's almost like the parking lot. It's the size of the system that invites people in. So this has many applications. And I don't want to take too much time, but what you can do with this model is you can change the configuration of the staffing. Just plug in different numbers in those little boxes and run the simulation again. Oh, let me just close it. Okay. Yes.
In our class, we had to do we had to run a simulation and use randomly generated variables to get data. In this case and in the previous model, how did you account for like real-time variation and variances around the average waiting times or arrival times? And how does that play out graphically?
Well, variation around the mean.
Yeah, so you select data, for example, and it says, well, our average waiting time or average arrival date is, let's say, 1 to the, but there's a variation.
Yeah. Well, you want to have a distribution. You basically want to take the data that you generated randomly. That is, was that a normal distribution?
Is that what we're assuming?
I mean, was that what you were assuming? Normality?
I think we can possibly make that assumption.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, let me show you something else. I want to show you one. Do we have time to look at another model? Okay. Let me go on with that, and I'll finish up with something I think addresses your question. But here again, you see we could keep track of server waiting time, server utilization. No, we could change the staffing. We still keep track of the number of arrivals. We kept track of the number of times the parking lot was full.
I have a question actually. During the design of the model, you collect the data, and for instance, how often does the simulation convey the reality of the waiting time? For instance, as you calculated the pre-modeling, and if it doesn't convey the same numbers, what could be the problem? Like what could be done? What could you have done wrong in the modeling simulation? How you try to make the parallel between what's going on really and what.
Well, I think you'd have to fine-tune the model, and by that I mean you'd have to examine the data and see why the model was either too fast or too slow in the waiting line. So you would keep adjusting the model parameters until in fact you got pretty close to the real life situation. So, but how accurate the model actually models the real life situation is a function of how good a job you do at collecting the data. So.
Well, we can make changes like to build an out system, like if we have fewer servers on that day, like real time, we have maybe fewer cashiers. We can make those changes in the model. Right?
Oh, sure, sure, yeah, yeah. I'll show you this other one quickly. This one is meant to be a radiology imaging suite. And you see the evolution of these. This was the last one I built, actually. Now here you can look at the capacity, the number of rooms that were available in the imaging suite. You can keep track of the utilization of each room. You can look at waiting time for ambulatory patients, in other words, outpatients, versus non-ambulatory patients, people that were basically on stretchers and so on. And you can vary the time, the demand on the department, and see how that affects all of these things. So this is, again, a little more graphic. There you go. So here you can see people coming in. 2 people, or wait, 3 people. You can see how the number of inpatients that are waiting in that little area off to the side. So you see how the model is keeping track of the outpatients, how long they waited, how long the people that were on stretchers waited. So you can do a lot of cool stuff with these things. But underneath this nice little picture here is all the basic stuff, all the mathematics that you saw earlier. Okay.
If we were to use this real time, let's say in Boston Medical Center radiology suite, and we have 10 patients who arrive by 10 o'clock in the morning, does this need to have linked up with something in the system that helps capture those 10 patients, or how many patients are coming in? Like how would these models work when we try to tie it up in certain departments or units?
Yeah, I think it's important to try to model the Department of the Service at the busiest time, what we call surge demand, the time when it's busiest. And then if you can, and some places vary their staffing out, actually hour by hour. And the managers, you might see this in fast food restaurants where the managers and supervisors have to jump into the sort of assembly line process at certain times in order to meet demand so that people aren't waiting. When do you think is the peak demand time at the Burger King over at the other campus, Charles River campus? What would you guess? 1 in the afternoon? No? Anybody else? No? What time?
7 o'clock.
No, midnight. Because Burger King closes at 1 a.m. And so all of the kids, students pour out of the Warren Towers there and go down to the, barrage, the Burger King. So at midnight, midnight to 1 o'clock, that place is jumping. And that's when they have to have that peak staffing in order to meet this surge demand. So when you study one of these processes, it's always better to focus on the busiest times. And if you improve that, then you learn enough to improve the process at other times of the day. All right, now I want to get back to this question about data. Okay. Ay, ay, ay. All right, good. All right, I've got I mentioned one of the things that's very expensive about this simulation is collecting the data because the length of time that it takes to collect the data adds to the cost. And data collection is probably one of the more expensive elements of this. So what you can do is you can collect a relative. What happens when you start collecting data is the rare events, if you're doing a distribution, those things on the tails are the rarest. So you have to, if you want to capture that part of the distribution, you have to stay longer in your data gathering. So there is software that allows you to, which I'm going to show you very quickly here, that allows you to this thing, it's called StatFit. What this allows you to do is take a small amount, a relatively small amount of data, and to see what kind of a distribution that it might be coming from, so that you don't have to collect data for such a long time. Okay, I can find this. Okay. not finding it. Yeah.
So you should have an Excel sheet at the back end with the data.
Yeah. Basically, what this software does is you feed the data into the software, and it tells you the probability that it came from a particular type of distribution. And within this software, there are probably 15 or 20 different types of distributions. So what StatFit does is it actually fits your data, and it gives you those rare events. Like it might say that your data looks like a Weibull distribution. Well, then you can go ahead and put that into your model, and you can test it, see how it compares to the real life process.
Can it continue to build if you have like 100 stations? Can it build like 1,000 stations based on this distribution and fill in the gap?
Yeah. I mean, once you get the statistics out of StatFit, knows the mean and so on, you can put that into the model and specify that it's a Weibull distribution, and put the parameters of a Weibull distribution into the model, and then you've saved all of that time of collecting that additional data. So I wish I could find this file, but it's pretty simple. It's a histogram. It gives you a histogram of your data, and it draws distribution over it. And it also gives you the probability for each type of distribution that it might be, and it gives you the parameters of that distribution, mean, standard deviation, whatever. You put that into your model. So you've really only got the two things that you're concerned with, the arrival distribution and the service distribution. And then as things get fancier, you might want to look at certain kinds of patients, like inpatients, outpatients, and fine-tune your model and make it more and more real life. So I hope that wasn't too bad.
So do we have time variation for this? Like, as you said, when you're at night in the living, if you want to show 6 hours in the morning and 6 hours in the evening, then in the afternoon you get that.
Yeah, usually what we do is model time segments throughout the day, and then just change we sort of do hour by hour or shift by shift. But yeah, there are going to be flag times like in the emergency room, for example. But usually what we do is start with the times where there's the most trouble. That is those time segments, usually in hours, like 4 o'clock in the afternoon to 5 in the afternoon.
Okay, yeah.
And if you have people model, can you implement a kind of, for instance, emergency, someone who doesn't follow the line, for instance, when you have an emergency running in the system and you have to, can you implement this kind of model?
Yeah, you can build, if you collect data on those people that leave the process for one reason or another, you can collect data and the model can simulate that. Yeah, and you can actually see those people leaving, just like you did in the bank model.
And you see that back.
Yeah, you can see those people like divert to leave.
And based on the experience, how accurate is the population model? Like if it's not and you implement it, and you do evaluation of the process,
I would say it's, you know, you might get up to 80% or something. But it's the same old story as, you know, when I was, you know, working in the hospitals, it was all guesswork. I mean, there was no science whatsoever. I mean, if the state clear, people that screamed the loudest were the ones that got the additional staff. I mean, I hate to admit it, but it's true. So, I mean, it was just by the seat of the pants. So these things are not perfect, but they will get you so much closer to, you know, do so much a better job of helping you to staff properly and keep people waiting the least amount of time. And once you build the model and as you continue to improve it and make it more like the real process, then you get better and better and better. But you come